Before writing a hypothesis, you should understand how to choose a specific hypothesis type according to your research goal. So, let's first focus on the types of hypotheses and when to select the right type of hypothesis. Then, I will show you how to create a hypothesis. A hypothesis is like a guess, an educated guess. It predicts the relationship between two or more factors, which researchers call variables. For example, does giving employees bonuses improve their performance? A hypothesis answers questions like that and gives you direction for your study. Types of hypotheses. Research hypothesis. This type predicts a specific relationship between two variables. It's commonly used in experimental research, where you test cause and effect relationships. Example, employees who work in teams will show higher innovation levels compared to employees who work individually. Null hypothesis. The null hypothesis says there's no relationship or no effect between variables. Researchers use it in statistical testing, where they try to disprove it with evidence. Example, providing free coffee to employees will not significantly impact their work performance. Alternative hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis opposes the null hypothesis. It suggests there is a relationship or effect. Example, providing free coffee to employees will significantly increase their work performance. Simple hypothesis. A simple hypothesis looks at the relationship between just two variables. It's ideal for straightforward correlational research, where you see how one thing affects another. Example, increasing the marketing budget will lead to higher monthly sales. Directional hypothesis. A directional hypothesis not only predicts a relationship but also specifies which way it will go, whether it will increase, decrease, or change in some way. It's used in longitudinal studies, where researchers track changes over time. Example, offering flexible working hours will reduce employee turnover. Non-directional hypothesis. A non-directional hypothesis says there's a relationship but doesn't guess the direction, it just says something will change. This is common in exploratory research, where you're not sure what to expect. Example, reorganizing the company structure will affect overall employee performance. Now, this is the key thing to understand. In scientific research, we always use two hypotheses. You can't just assume your prediction is correct right from the start. One is the alternative hypothesis, and the other is the null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis can be of any type that we discussed earlier, whether it's directional, specifying the direction of the effect, or non-directional, just suggesting that a relationship exists, without specifying the direction. Null hypothesis is the starting point of your research. Your goal is to see if your data provides enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis and support the alternative hypothesis. If you reject the null hypothesis, you conclude that the alternative hypothesis is supported, meaning there is a significant relationship or effect. If you fail to reject the null hypothesis, you conclude that there is no significant relationship or effect based on the data. Steps for formulation of hypothesis. Step 1. Identify the research topic. Pick your interested topic. I am selecting employee productivity in the workplace. Step 2. Review existing literature. What do we already know about this topic? Please see above video where I discussed easy step-by-step procedure. It is about how to find gap with Google Scholar and ChatGPT. Reviewing the literature helps you identify what's already been studied, and more importantly, what gaps exist in the research. This way, your hypothesis will contribute something new to the field. For example, if literature review findings shows that research shows flexible work hours can reduce stress, but studies on productivity are mixed. This shows a gap. We know it affects stress, but does it really boost productivity? So, Step 3, research question. From the gap you identified in the literature, you can now create a research question. This question should be specific, based on what you want to explore. Does offering flexible work hours improve employee productivity? Step 4, choose variables. Next, you need to define your variables. Independent variable. The independent variable is the one you will manipulate or categorize. In this case, it's work hours, flexible versus fixed. You're changing the type of work schedule. Dependent variable. The dependent variable is the one you will measure. In this case, productivity. You'll see how productivity changes based on whether employees have flexible work hours or fixed schedules. Remember, the independent variable, work hours, will affect the dependent variable, productivity. So, you're testing whether flexible work hours result in higher productivity. Step 5. Formulate the hypothesis. Now it's time to write your hypothesis. This is a testable statement that predicts a relationship between the independent and dependent variables. Research hypothesis. This is your prediction about the relationship between the two variables. Example: employees with flexible work hours will show higher productivity compared to those with fixed schedules. This hypothesis is based on above gap that we discussed. In this hypothesis, employees refer to the subjects or participants in the research study. Work hour is independent variable. Productivity is dependent variable. Flexible work hours and fixed schedules are two categories within the independent variable, work hours. You are comparing the effect of these two categories on the dependent variable, productivity. Step 6. Determine the type of hypothesis. Now, because this is experimental research, so my alternative hypothesis type is research hypothesis. Research hypothesis. Employees with flexible work hours will show higher productivity compared to those with fixed schedules. Null hypothesis. Flexible work hours have no impact on productivity. If your data supports the alternative hypothesis and shows that flexible work hours improve productivity, then you can reject the null hypothesis. Step 6. Refine and revise. Review your hypothesis for clarity and feasibility. Make adjustments as needed. If new data suggests productivity varies by department, revise to flexible work hours improve productivity in client-facing roles. I hope this explanation has helped you understand how to create a hypothesis for your research study. The key is to clearly define your independent and dependent variables and to formulate both a research hypothesis and a null hypothesis. Remember, the research hypothesis predicts a relationship between variables, while the null hypothesis assumes no relationship exists. Please leave a comment below sharing your understanding or any questions you might have. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into future studies.